Hijacked at 30,000 feet. The rain lashed against the runway at John F. Kennedy International Airport, blurring the lights into streaks of gold and white. Passengers of Atlantic Air Flight 702 shuffled aboard, unaware that by sunrise the plane would become the center of an international manhunt. Among them sat a man in a charcoal suit, his face calm, his eyes cold. His name was Rafael Cruz, a ghost in the underworld, a strategist with blood on his hands. But tonight he wasn't a gangster. He was a brother. 2 weeks earlier, Rafael's younger brother, Mateo Cruz, had been arrested in Madrid during a joint operation between Interpol and the FBI. Mateo was no saint, but he wasn't the monster the authorities painted him to be. He had taken the fall for a syndicate leader who disappeared before the raid. Now Mateo was being extradited to the U.S., facing life imprisonment. Rafael had two choices: surrender his empire or start a war. He chose the sky. 2 hours into the flight to London, Rafael stood up. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said calmly, his voice carrying through the cabin, "remain seated. This plane is under my control." Panic rippled through the passengers. His men, 3 of them, rose from separate seats, revealing compact weapons smuggled in pieces through security. A flight attendant screamed before being silenced by a cold stare. Rafael entered the cockpit. "Change course," he told the trembling captain. "We're heading south." "You don't have the range." Rafael slid a photograph onto the dashboard. It showed Mateo in chains. "You'll make the range." Within minutes, air traffic control lost contact. Fighter jets were scrambled. News stations exploded with headlines. Rafael made his broadcast. "I want my brother released from custody immediately. Transfer him to a private jet at Heathrow Airport. No trackers, no tricks, or this aircraft disappears." The world froze. Governments don't negotiate with terrorists, but this terrorist knew secrets. Rafael transmitted encrypted files to media outlets, proof of corruption linking powerful officials to international arms deals, names, dates, offshore accounts. The clock started ticking. Inside the cabin, a quiet woman in seat 14C watched everything carefully. She appeared frightened, but her breathing was controlled. Her name wasn't on the manifest. Agent Elena Voss of MI6 had been tracking Rafael for 3 years. She had anticipated something desperate, but not this. She slipped into the lavatory and assembled a concealed transmitter. "Control, this is Voss. He's on board, and he's not alone." But there was something else she hadn't expected. When she hacked into Rafael's onboard tablet signal, she discovered a second encrypted communication. Rafael wasn't negotiating for release, he was stalling. Back in Madrid, Mateo Cruz sat in his cell, unaware of the chaos unfolding. Or so it seemed. A guard approached. "You're being transferred early." Mateo smiled faintly, because this was never Rafael's plan. The real objective wasn't to free Mateo through negotiation, it was to force authorities to move him. Convoys are vulnerable, prisons are fortified. As Mateo was loaded into an armored van en route to the airport, explosions rocked the narrow street. Black SUVs blocked the convoy, gunfire erupted. Rafael's elite crew, waiting for this precise moment. Back on the plane, Elena Voss realized the truth too late. The hijacking was a diversion, but something else was wrong. One of Rafael's men turned his weapon, not on passengers, but on Rafael. "You didn't tell us the brother wasn't on the plane," the man growled. Rafael's eyes darkened. He was never meant to be. Gunshots exploded inside the cabin. Chaos erupted.
Oxygen masks fell. The plane jolted violently as the autopilot disengaged. Elena seized her moment, tackling the armed man. A brutal fight broke out in the aisle. Passengers screamed as bullets tore through seats. Raphael lunged into the cockpit, regaining control just as a fighter jet locked onto them. "Missile locked detected," the co-pilot cried. Raphael opened a private channel. "This ends now," he said coldly. He sent a final file to global news outlets, a dead man's switch containing enough evidence to collapse governments. Then he did the unthinkable. He dropped the plane sharply below radar range, skimming over the Atlantic in a maneuver so reckless it nearly tore the wings apart. The fighter jets lost lock. Hours later, the plane made an emergency landing on a remote airstrip in North Africa. Authorities stormed it. Raphael was gone. So was Elena Voss. In Casablanca, two figures exited a warehouse at dawn. "You could have arrested me," Raphael said quietly. Elena aimed her weapon at him, but didn't fire. "You exposed people my agency couldn't touch, but if you think this makes us allies, I don't. It makes us even." A news alert flashed on a nearby screen. "Convoy ambushed. Prisoner Mateo Cruz missing." Elena's eyes narrowed. "You planned every move." Raphael gave a faint smile. "No," he said. "He did." In another part of the city, Mateo watched the same news report from a rooftop cafe. He crushed his phone and stood, because the evidence Raphael released, it implicated not just politicians, but the crime syndicate they once worked for. The brothers hadn't just escaped, they had declared war. Weeks later, warrants were issued, governments reshuffled, criminal empires trembled. But the Cruz brothers were shadows again, and somewhere in the world, a message circulated through encrypted channels. When you cage one wolf, the pack hunts.